relation tales. On Saturday night, Mary told James she had to go to a company party. James couldn't shake the uneasy feeling inside him. In the past, she always told him ahead of time about such events, but this time, Mary mentioned it casually, like it wasn't a big deal. She looked at him and said, "This is work, James. I can't mess it up, and it's just a party." James felt uncomfortable and replied, "I don't like the idea of you going alone. I have a bad feeling about it." Mary sighed, grabbed her bag, and said, "Even if you don't agree, I'm still going. I don't want to argue. It's part of my job." As she walked away, James stood there, filled with worry and confusion. Unanswered questions kept his mind busy all night. That night, the clock struck 11 o'clock, but Mary still hadn't returned. James sat on the sofa, trying to relax, but his mind couldn't stop worrying. James stood up and paced back and forth in the living room. Finally, he decided to go into the bedroom to turn off the lights, hoping to forget his uneasy feeling. When he approached Mary's dressing table, the soft light from her forgotten phone caught James' eyes. He paused. Mary had been in such a hurry that she had forgotten to bring her phone, something she had never done before. James felt a strong curiosity rising in his heart. He hesitated for a moment, but then couldn't hold back anymore. Reaching for the phone, James unlocked it and looked through the messages. His heart clenched as the messages and pictures appeared on the screen. The messages were sweet and intimate, but not for him. They were words of love and dating that Mary had sent to another man. Her bright smile when she was with that person, and even naked pictures of them together. James stood there, feeling like his entire world was collapsing around him. He couldn't believe his eyes. The wife he once trusted and loved had betrayed him so cruelly. James knew that the messages and pictures on Mary's phone were too obvious, but that wasn't enough to proceed with a divorce. He needed more proof to protect himself and make sure there was no going back. That night, he couldn't sleep well, his mind busy with thoughts and plans for the future. The next morning, James woke up to see Mary lying beside him, her face calm like nothing had happened. Pain and anger filled his heart, but he held it in. He knew he couldn't rush things. "Why are you up so early?" Mary asked. James tried to stay calm and answered in a normal voice. "Nothing. I just need to go to the bathroom." He stood up, left the bedroom, and walked into the bathroom, trying to calm himself down. Looking in the mirror, he found himself having to pretend that everything was fine, even though his heart was broken. After washing his face and organizing his thoughts, James walked out with stronger determination. He knew he needed a clear plan to get out of this relationship safely and without leaving any shortcomings. He decided to hire a private detective to monitor Mary's every move, collecting more solid evidence of the affair. The plan was outlined. James would continue to pretend to know nothing, stay calm, and wait for more evidence. Meanwhile, the detective would closely monitor Mary, making sure not to miss any details. The next morning, James received a report from the detective via email. It detailed that Mary had met a man at a small coffee shop where they sat drinking and talking for a few hours. The detective said there was no strange behavior, no signs of affection, just a normal talk. Afterward, both of them left the shop and went home, with no signs of an affair. On Tuesday evening, Mary told James she would be home late because of work. James stayed calm, showing no emotion, and just nodded. He knew things wouldn't end as easily as the night before. In his mind, he had a plan and decided to wait for what would happen next. Around 10 p.m., as James sat in the living room, his phone buzzed. It was a message from the detective. The detective reported that Mary had met the same man again, and this time they left the office together, heading toward the city center. At 11 p.m., James' phone buzzed again with another update from the detective. He opened the phone with a heavy feeling, his heart filled with anxiety. The first images that appeared made him petrified. Entering a hotel, the detective had worked very carefully, sending James not only clear photos but also videos. The next photos and videos not only stopped the video, recorded them taking off their clothes and having sex without any restraint. James felt as if the blood in his body had frozen. His heart was pounding, but everything around him seemed to become silent, had stopped. The evidence was too obvious, undeniable. James knew that this marriage was over and there was nothing left to save. The next morning, while Mary was still asleep, James planned the next step. He called to make an appointment with a divorce lawyer, whom he had researched before but had never thought he would need so soon. He did not want to waste any more time, because this betrayal had exceeded his tolerance limit. At the lawyer's office, James presented all the evidence the detective had collected: photos, text messages, and even a video of Mary and the other man at the hotel. The lawyer listened carefully, nodding in confirmation that this was enough evidence to proceed with the divorce quickly without having to face too many legal difficulties. The lawyer guided James through the necessary documents, including the assets he wanted divided and the terms of the divorce agreement. James felt a pain of pain as he signed the papers, but he knew that this was necessary to start a new life. He did not want to continue living in lies and suffering. After meeting with the lawyer, James left the office. He stayed calm in front of Mary, not showing any signs of anger or pain, even though inside, he was ready to end it all. Every day, he watched her leave the house as if nothing was wrong. But in his heart, he had decided that when the right moment came, he would leave without saying a word. After 3 weeks of waiting, the divorce was finalized, along with all the evidence the detective had gathered about Mary's betrayal. Holding the papers in his hands, James felt like a chapter in his life had officially closed. On Thursday morning, he woke up earlier than usual. Mary rushed to get ready for work, not knowing what was about to happen. As she left the house, James watched, feeling a mixture of pain and disappointment, but he knew it was the right decision. He spent the rest of the day packing for his new life. James packed everything he needed, from clothes, personal papers to mementos he wanted to take with him. He was well prepared to leave the house they had once shared, which had now become a stranger to him. Before leaving, James placed a file on the living room table. Inside were all the evidence of Mary's infidelity, along with a copy of the divorce paper that she could not deny. There was no note, no explanation, because he believed that what he left behind said it all. When everything was ready, James left the house without looking back once. He left no trace, only silence and emptiness. Feeling free after months of being deceived and suffering, he entered a new life without saying goodbye. That evening, when Mary returned home, everything seemed strangely quiet. She walked in the door, calling James' name, but received no response. The house was quiet. Only the dim light from the living room lamp remained. Mary entered and quickly realized the abnormality. On the table, a document was placed neatly, as if waiting for her for a long time. Mary opened the document with a bit of curiosity, but immediately her face paled when she saw the content inside. It was clear pictures of her and the other man in intimate moments, nude pictures, undeniable pictures of sex, all exposing her betrayal of James. In front of her was the divorce papers, with James' signature clearly visible. He had decided to leave her, without a word of warning, without a chance to explain or apologize. Mary stood there, stunned, unable to believe that in a moment her marriage had ended. James left without saying goodbye, without any blame or explanation. He left behind only the harsh evidence and the divorce papers, ending everything they had. Mary collapsed, feeling the emptiness around her. She knew it was too late to fix anything. James was gone from her life, taking with him their trust, love, and all their dreams for the future. Mary was left with nothing but loneliness and deep pain, facing the consequences of her own betrayal. She tried to call James as soon as she realized what had happened, but it was no use. His phone was off, and there was no way to reach him. She kept calling and sending message after message, but all she got in return was silence. Mary realized that James had completely vanished from her life, leaving no trace behind. She had to face the results of her bad decisions. There were no more excuses, no more chances to make things right. Just the harsh truth that their relationship was over, for good. A chapter in their lives had ended, filled with tears and heartbreak, leaving both of them with pain they would each have to deal with in their own way. Second story. Hi everyone, I've never shared this full story before, but I need to get it off my chest. A year ago, a new guy started working at my job, and we began dating. I had just gotten out of an emotionally abusive relationship, which I told him about. At first, he was sweet and kind, and I thought I was finally lucky. I had done a lot of healing and trusted him, despite what I'd been through. We work in a mall, and our store is friends with the boss of the store right across from us, who often chats with us. In early December last year, my boyfriend mentioned that the other store's boss introduced him to a girl who was studying the same thing he was. He asked if he could message her, and I said it was fine as long as they didn't get too close. We never talked about it again, and he didn't bring it up either. Well, it turns out they did get too close, and on Christmas Eve, he told me he kind of wanted a break. He didn't mention her, but I felt something was off and like he was hiding something. I didn't think of her at the time. During the holidays, from Christmas Eve to New Year's Eve, he kept saying he wanted to be with me and loved me, but then he started saying he saw me more as a friend. On New Year's Day, he dumped me, saying he wasn't ready for a relationship but begged me to stay friends. It felt like he was feeling guilty. He even took an Uber home while I was crying in the snow. Afterward, he was a terrible friend. It was clear he was talking to someone else but hiding it from me. He even kept me as a backup, saying maybe we could get back together when he was ready for a relationship. I asked him several times if he was seeing someone else, and he always said no. Imagine my shock when he blocked me 2 weeks later. It was actually my manager who told me that my ex was dating someone else. My manager was always on my side and knew he wasn't a good person. After doing some digging, I found out it was the girl from the store across from us. Apparently, they had been going on dates during the holidays while we were still together. I confronted him and called him every name I could think of. After that, he would pick her up after her shifts right in front of me and our coworkers, which was so embarrassing at first. I wanted to confront her, but I never did. It doesn't bother me as much now, especially since I found another job, but sometimes I remember it, and it still hurts. I feel like I can't trust anyone anymore, and it's hard knowing they got away with it and seem happy together. I barely got through the door when I saw her sitting at the kitchen table, her face masked with that look you get before delivering bad news. Amber, my wife of 10 years, motioned for me to sit down across from her. No small talk, no pleasantries, just an eerie silence that filled the space between us. "Logan, we need to talk," she said, her voice wavering just slightly. My stomach tightened. This wasn't the first time I'd heard those words, but something about her tone told me that whatever came next would be a gut punch. "Just say it, Amber." "I'm listening," I replied, crossing my arms over my chest, bracing for impact. She took a deep breath, not meeting my eyes. "I still love you, Logan, I do. But I've realized there's something missing for me. I need more, and I think I want to explore that with someone else." The words hit me like a slap. My heart pounded, my vision narrowing in on her face, as if searching for a sign that this was some sort of sick joke. But she just sat there, waiting for me to say something, her fingers nervously tapping the edge of the table. "You want to see someone else?" I managed to get out, the anger creeping into my voice despite my best efforts. "And what, you think I'm supposed to just accept that? Let you walk off with another guy while I wait around like a fool?" She bit her lip, the confidence in her voice wavering. "It wouldn't change how I feel about you. It's just physical. If you love me as much as you say, you'll understand." I let out a bitter laugh, leaning back in my chair. "And you'd be fine if I suggested the same thing? If I told you I wanted to be with someone else too?" Amber blinked, caught off guard. I think I'd try to understand," she said, but I could hear the uncertainty, the lie beneath the surface. "You're kidding yourself," I snapped. "You'd never accept it. But you expect me to?" A moment of silence stretched between us, thick with tension. She finally looked me in the eye, and I saw the determination there. "Logan, this is something I feel I need to do. I hope you'll give me the space to do it." I stormed out of the room, my mind racing, barely hearing her call my name as I slammed the door to our bedroom. Anger surged through me, mingling with disbelief. How had it come to this? Just days ago, I thought we were, if not perfect, then stable. And now, she wanted to bring someone else into our lives? Sleep was impossible that night. I tossed and turned, the sheets tangling around me like a vice. Around 3 a.m., I finally made up my mind. If Amber was serious about this, I needed to know exactly what she had planned. And if she thought I'd let her trample over our life together without a fight, she had another thing coming. The next morning, I left the house at my usual time, barely glancing her way. But instead of going straight to work, I made a detour. I called in a personal day and headed to a store specializing in surveillance gear. As I gathered what I needed, voice-activated recorders, a GPS tracker, a spy camera, I felt a sense of grim satisfaction. If she was planning to betray me, I wouldn't let her get away with it. By the end of the day, I had everything set up. A tiny recorder in her car, another hidden near the phone, and one tucked into a corner of our bedroom. I also managed to access her phone account, forwarding her messages to my own email. It felt like an invasion of privacy, but what choice did I have? She was the one who'd shattered my trust first. The next few days were a blur of waiting and listening, each message and call revealing a little more of the truth. The name that kept coming up was Jake. They exchanged sweet words and secret plans, arranging to spend a weekend together. Jake was a coworker of hers, someone I'd met at a few of their office events. I thought he was just a friendly colleague. Turns out he was more. On Friday morning, I called my lawyer, laying out the situation. I'm going to need help with this. A divorce, but I want to make sure she doesn't walk away unscathed. I told him, my voice hard with determination. I'll have the evidence you need by Monday. That afternoon, I watched from a distance as Jake's car pulled into our driveway. Amber stepped out of the house, her suitcase in hand. She glanced around nervously, but I made sure to stay out of sight. As she leaned into the car window to kiss him, she cast a quick, smug look toward our house. It was all I could do not to walk over and confront them right then and there. Instead, I let them drive off and waited a few minutes before heading inside. I packed a bag, grabbed my hidden camera equipment, and followed them to the hotel they'd planned to stay at. They had reserved room 214 for their little weekend. I booked room 216. Setting up the cameras was easy. I placed one in a vent between the rooms, giving me a perfect view of their bed. I installed another one outside their window. It felt wrong, but I pushed that feeling deep down. They'd made their choices, and now I'd make mine. I watched as they arrived, catching snippets of their conversation. They laughed, joked, and whispered sweet nothings, words that once belonged to me. But the real punch came when Amber started talking about how free she felt, how she hadn't realized what she'd been missing. I recorded everything, capturing their time together on video. They spent their nights in bed, their days exploring the city like tourists, enjoying dinner dates, and indulging in the kind of intimate moments that had once been ours. On Saturday night, I decided to add a little twist to their evening. I called for a delivery to their room, a bouquet of roses. When Amber answered the door, she looked puzzled as she read the card. Hope you're having a great time with Jake. Logan. Her face drained of color. She immediately dialed my number. What is this, Logan? Are you spying on me? Her voice was laced with panic. Enjoy the flowers, Amber. You've earned them, I said coldly before hanging up. I watched through the camera feed as she tried to explain herself to Jake, her hands shaking. He put an arm around her, trying to calm her down, but I could see the tension in his jaw. Sunday afternoon, I made my way back home, arriving just before Amber did. She walked through the door, looking like a shadow of herself, guilt etched across her face. But I wasn't interested in her apologies. I handed her the manila envelope filled with the divorce papers and the evidence I had collected. Logan, please, just let me explain, she begged, her voice cracking. There's nothing left to explain, I replied, my voice as cold as ice. You made your choice. Now you get to live with the consequences. Tears streamed down her face, but I felt nothing. For too long, I'd been the one carrying the pain. Now it was her turn. The next few weeks were filled with legal battles, tense conversations, and awkward encounters. I blocked her number, shut her out of my life completely. Amber moved out, crashing on her sister's couch while she tried to piece her life back together. But every time she tried to reach out, to make amends, I ignored her. Meanwhile, I made sure Jake faced his own consequences. My lawyer served him papers, intent to sue for alienation of affection. I knew it would cost him, even if it never made it to court. He called me once, swearing that Amber had meant nothing to him, that he hadn't intended to wreck my life. I just laughed and hung up. He deserved every bit of it. Amber's sister, Rachel, tried to mediate between us, calling to ask if I could meet with Amber to hear her out. But I declined every time. She made her bed, Rachel. Let her lie in it. As the dust settled, I started rebuilding my life, finding small moments of peace. I reconnected with old friends, spent time at the gym, and started working on a side project I'd put off for years. The nights felt less empty, the silence less suffocating. And then I met Tessa, a woman I ran into at a bookstore one rainy afternoon. We bonded over a shared love of old sci-fi novels and coffee. At first, I was hesitant keeping my distance, but she had a way of making me laugh, of making me forget about everything that had gone wrong. We started meeting up for coffee, then dinner, and slowly something began to grow between us. It wasn't a fairy tale romance, but it was honest, and it was real. Months later, as I finalized the last of the divorce proceedings, I felt a strange sense of relief. Amber had moved on, though I heard through the grapevine that things hadn't worked out with Jake. She tried to find closure, but some doors once closed can never truly be opened again. I, on the other hand, had learned to find strength in my solitude. With Tessa by my side, I started to see a future that wasn't defined by the past. And for the first time in years, I felt hope. As I stood outside the courthouse, signing the final papers, I realized that I was free, not just from the marriage that had crumbled, but from the bitterness that had threatened to consume me. And that, more than anything else, was worth fighting for.